Hey, hello, sacred friend. Welcome back. I am Lori Andrus, and welcome to this episode of the Luminary Life Podcast. Today, we are going to talk about Rhodochrosite, the October crystal ally of the month. Now, you may have already caught the video where I shared the message, the deeper message from the Stone Speak Oracle. If you haven't, I'll be dropping the link down below and pop on over, take a listen. And if you have already taken a listen and you want to re-listen, go ahead, enjoy. I feel like its message is so beautiful and wonderfully heart-centered. It teaches us a lot about the tenderness of the heart space and how different experiences throughout life, it can prompt us to create certain defenses, add up layers and barriers of protection, and how there comes a time where those no longer serve, and it's time to open the petals of our heart. Yeah, beautiful exhale with that. We're also going to look at how it invites a balance between the masculine and feminine energy, inviting us to really lean into the aspect of the feminine that is so needed, not only in the world right now, but in the energy of love and letting that lead as we move through our lives. We're going to look at rhythms and cycles and how Rhodochrosite teaches us the wisdom of that, knowing that love has its own timing as well, and that our heart is so deeply tapped in and tuned into that. So as we kick off this conversation, I actually want to begin with a little bit of a story. No surprise, I like to tell stories. And this story actually has to do with my dog, Clover, who is turning 1 today. Yes, it's her first birthday, and we're so excited. It's hard to believe it's already been a year. But as I'm thinking about Rhodochrosite, I'm thinking about her birthday, and I'm thinking about the beautiful ways that she has been opening my own heart to love even more wholly and in such a rich and deep, meaningful way. I'm also remembering her story and how it began and how she came into the world and the timing. There's some really interesting details around this, and I want to share that story with you. So about 18 months, maybe close to 2 years prior to Clover's arrival, I had this just deep longing for an American Eskimo dog, and I did tons of research, no surprise. And within that research, I came across a breeder who just checked all of the boxes for me, who just lit me up. And she's been doing this for 40 years. She's literally written a book on Nordic breeds and American Eskimos. She's shown her dogs. She has an AKC bloodline, which is, to me, not all that significant because I don't intend to show a dog. But there was something about all of that. And then in addition, she has a background in naturopathy and canine and equine chiropractics and all these other things that were really heartfelt connection to me. And so I actually wrote to her, submitted a deposit, and she said, okay, we've got a list. There's about 50 people on the list, and I only have, 4 litters maybe a year, and the litters are small. So I don't know, maybe 18 months, 2 years till you'll come up on the list. And I was like, all right, well, we'll wait. We'll let that timing unfold as it's meant to. And that's what we did. And about 7 weeks before Clover was born, we received a message from her saying, hey, there's a litter that was just born and you're up on the list. Are you still interested? And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, I am. I'm so interested. I was so excited. And so we wrote back, started, more correspondence around, what that would look like and, all those details. And a name came forward almost immediately for our little pup, and her name was going to be Ruby. And so we just fell in love with fell in love with her right away, right? Through the pictures, through her energy. I started journeying to her, connecting with her. But something felt very soft about her energy. It just didn't feel as vibrant as maybe some of the other pups did. But I also kind of just felt like, that's going to work itself out. It's, I didn't really know what that was. And then at 7 weeks, all of a sudden her name changed. And I thought to myself, well, that's really weird. I started really clearly getting that our puppy's name is Clover. And it was like crystal clear. And I went to Chris and I said, Chris, how do you feel about the name Clover? What if our puppy's name isn't Ruby? What if it's Clover? And he's like, oh, I love that. That sounds perfect. And he was just like immediately on board with it. Well, that same day, I got an email from the breeder saying, I have some sad news. Your puppy passed. And she shared a bit about what happened. And, my heart just sank. And I felt so much sadness because here we had been waiting already almost 2 years and we were in this momentum, right? And so I continued to read on in her message and she said, but I have some other news. And I was like, other news? A new litter was born today. She was only breeding 2 dogs at that time. And the second dog also had a litter. A new litter was born. And immediately I understood the name change. I understood the energy shift. I understood all of those pieces. It was really crystal clear. And I was like, wow. Fascinating. I think sometimes when we move through life and we get intuitive hits or weird changes, like a name suddenly changes, we don't always have the full picture of what's going on or why, but we have an opportunity to just trust our intuition, to just listen just a little bit more closely and just soften and open our hearts. Well, we definitely needed to wait another 7 weeks. And actually we waited, from that point, we waited about almost 11 weeks to pick up Clover. Yes, the breeder really likes to keep her puppies a little bit longer because it's really she finds it to be really beneficial for them to have about 10 to 12 weeks with their litter mates before finding their homes or going to their homes. But it worked out perfectly for us because then she arrived on the winter solstice, and we welcomed her into our world. And she took us on her own journey, which has been so much fun. Timing in life is so interesting, and Rhodochrosite invites us to find that, to lean into it, and to slow down and notice the signs and the messages that show up that remind us that we're in our perfect timing, and that while we don't always have to be actively trying to create the next thing, the next step. Life itself is working with us. It's colluding on our behalf in a beautiful, supportive way. And Rhodochrosite invites us to just open our hearts to witness and experience and be present with that unfolding. One of the next things I'd really like to lean into in this conversation around Rhodochrosite is actually the name. I want to share with you the meaning behind the name, because to me that was really significant. When I leaned in and read a bit about the name, I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. That totally makes sense. The name itself, Rhodochrosite, is rooted in Greek, and it's 2 words, rhodon and chrosis. Rhodon meaning rose, and chrosis meaning colored. Rose colored. It is a rose colored stone. So when I use all that metaphor around the unfolding of the petals of the heart and opening of the heart, it actually is leaning into that name and into the message and the energy that it carries. When we look at rhodochrosite, I have a beautiful little piece here that I'll share with you. So those of you catching this on YouTube, you're going to see rhodochrosite. But if you're catching it on the podcast, I want to invite you to just pull up a picture of this stone. It's so beautiful. It's many, many layers to the stone. And beautiful pink colors, pink to whites to some beautiful grays or like gold even, like pyrite. There can be pyrite within that. Those layers can sometimes look kind of almost lacy or ribbon-like, and they have this beautiful kind of flowy pattern. That name itself, though, rose-colored, I mean, it really draws forth the feminine, the divine feminine with that, and that energy of tuning into the divinity that lives within the heart, the divinity that is reflected in the energy of love and how we relate to life. Are we relating to the rest of life, to our own lives, to the lives of those around us as divine beings? Are we recognizing and witnessing, honoring and loving the divine in all of life? I know this isn't always easy. It can be pretty challenging, especially when things aren't neat and orderly or smooth and gentle and playful and loving. When they become complex and challenging, frustrating, disappointing, polarized, as we so are seeing in the world right now. When we see all of that happening, it can be really challenging to stay in our hearts and to embrace love. But rhodochrosite is reminding us that this is the time when love is most necessary. And not just love from the place of recognizing and honoring, but from the place of embracing divinity and embracing the feminine. Yeah. There's the piece here with the rose colored, there is a nod, like a gentle nod, acknowledgement to the divine feminine. And to me, with my Catholic upbringing, I see that as a nod to Mary, Mother Mary, and to the divinity that's acknowledged and recognized within her. I feel like that divinity piece that sometimes we recognize, don't recognize, I feel like her invitation and the invitation of rhodochrosite is to recognize and lean into the divinity of the feminine. The divinity that is within all. And as we begin to, I think sometimes we have some challenging feelings or emotions or ideas around the complexity, around individuating the feminine from the masculine and looking at one or the other. But I think part of the reason it's so important to acknowledge the feminine is because it's been so significantly devalued and lacked in acknowledgement in our world, and to bring that into a place of balance and recognizing how one supports the other. And there's this beautiful dance of infinity that moves between both, that creates the energy of coming together. One supports the other. One is required for the other. And whether or not we identify as masculine or feminine as individuals, we all require the balance of masculine and feminine within ourselves. The presence, the ways that the masculine creates the container for the feminine to flow, to be held and allowed to expand at the same time. It's such an interesting energy. My very first podcast years and years ago was called The Priestess Pathway. And in that podcast, I really leaned into the energy of the feminine and how important it is for its emergence at this time. And I feel like so much of what I talked about back then could still be talked about in this time, because I feel like it's really reflected. It's evolved in many ways, but we've come so far, and yet, there's so much further to go. Letting ourselves each recognize the ways that we can embrace our own femininity, the ways that the feminine wants to live, breathe, and be expressed through us. It's a big part of opening our own hearts, allowing the petals of our hearts to unfold, allowing the flow of love to be given and received. Now, the next piece that Rhodochrosite really teaches about and supports us with is the energy of healing some of those old stories, those old beliefs that we've had, the old narratives that we've had about the limitations around love and relationship. And those being often rooted in different traumatic experiences, different challenges, different experiences that we've had in relationships that just didn't turn out so well, in relationships where we've felt hurt and as a result created some sort of barrier within our hearts. Barrier intended to protect ourselves, not out of any reason other than trying to keep ourselves safe, which is a very loving act. I want to honor that as well. When we create barriers and boundaries, often it's out of a desire to protect self, and that can come from a beautiful place of love. But often in our journey, there comes a point where those barriers, those protections, those boundaries that we have are ready to evolve, they're ready to shift, and they're ready to be seen with a new level of love and tenderness. And this is where Rhodochrosite's message of love courageously, love compassionately comes into play. It invites us to be present with the ways that our heart has some tenderness, some story and pain that's ready to be honored, acknowledged, healed, and released. And part of the invitation with that is to invite in the divine feminine, that sacred feminine, to support us in the process of unfurling those stories, releasing them, healing them, and cleansing them with love. Now, part of the imagery that always comes in for me is like a beautiful rose water bath that just washes over the heart. And for those of you who enjoy working with either essential oils or like a rose water, this is a really beautiful practice to just splash a little rose, like pour a little rose water in your hand, tap it together, and then just splash it on your heart or place it at your heart, letting yourself inhale that scent and that aroma, because it really awakens that rose energy. It awakens the energy of the divine feminine, and it reminds us that we are always connected with the divine, that we are divine. So let's circle back and talk a little bit more about this balance of the masculine and the feminine. And I want to just acknowledge that the masculine often reflects that protective, supportive, grounded energy. And as we strengthen that within ourselves, and then also simultaneously strengthen the feminine, which tends to be receptive, intuitive, and more nurturing, as we strengthen both of those, we find ourselves in a nice, even, supported place. So one of the things that you can begin to do with Rhodochrosite throughout this month beyond just carrying it with you or having it in a really sacred spot, maybe on your altar or on your desk or someplace where you can connect with it or even wear it, wearing my Rhodochrosite earrings, let yourself bring a piece of Rhodochrosite to your heart and just simply sink in and recognize and honor the part of yourself that is grounded and the part of yourself that is fluid, the part of yourself that is held and supported, the part of yourself that is receptive, the part of yourself that is soft and tender, the part of yourself that is strong and courageous. We can be all of these qualities at once. And Rhodochrosite invites us to show up with that presence. Again, that message from the Stone Speak Oracle: love courageously, love compassionately. Yeah. You know, as we move through these final couple months of the year, we're working with Rhodochrosite in the month of October. In the month of November, we're going to be working with lapis lazuli. And then in the month of December, we're going to be working with carnelian. Now, these last 3 months, the allies are really inviting us into a place of connecting with the feminine. Little by little, there's like one layer. This first layer is opening the heart. The next, the lapis, is going to the place of vision. And then the third is going to the place of creative fire, activating our creative capacity in the world. And I think this is such an interesting, triad of crystals, Trinity, triad. I think we could use either one. And the way they work together, because it reminds me of a practice that one of my teachers from Peru, Adolfo, has shared really beautifully. And it was a part of every class with him, or every time we'd be in presence with him, he would invite us into this practice. And it would be to bring a hand to the heart and to let our heart connect in with the rhythm of the earth, connect in with the rhythm of the world, connect in with the rhythm of life. And then as it would sink into that rhythm, then connecting with our sacral chakra, or just above that, kind of when in the belly area, which is an area of fire and creativity. And then also with our place of vision, maintaining that connection with the heart, but then connecting with our sacral and then with our third eye, creating that bridge of energy between all three, letting energy flow really fluidly in a beautiful rhythm. And this is a practice that I want to invite you into doing for yourself. You just keep one hand at your heart the entire time, letting your heart connect. If you have a piece of Rhodochrosite, hold it there. And if you don't, that's okay. Just tune into the energy, invite it to be present with you. Call in the crystal allies, the energy, the spirit of Rhodochrosite, and invite it to be present with you. And then tap in from there to your sense of vision, tap in to your energy of creativity and creation, your sacral chakra. Let yourself begin to balance, connect with the earth, connect with the feminine energy of the earth, the creative energy that reminds us of our own creative power and potential, reminds us of our own creative divinity, reminds us of our connection to life and to a greater rhythm, a rhythm that is so far beyond anything we can conceive of. That a natural timing that unfolds in ways that we cannot always see, don't always understand, but we are a part of. that story with Clover and her timing of coming into the world, and the departure of Ruby, and the timing of welcoming a puppy into our family. That was timing set so far beyond anything I could have imagined. And it was so divinely perfect. When we step back, when we open our hearts and we allow the rhythm of life to unfold, it brings magic. And it weaves it into the world around us in many ways at all times, in ways that delight and surprise us. How cool is that? All right, so I want to invite you to get a hold of a piece of rhodochrosite this month. Work with it, enjoy it. And then I also want to share that I have actually set a date and time for the 2026 crystal forecast. And that is going to be on Sunday, December 7th at 10 a.m. Central Time. Now, I don't yet have a link or anything set up, but keep your eyes open because I'll be sharing that in the coming weeks. Sometime before the end of this month, I'll have that all put together so that you can sign up and join me for that forecast. It's such a beautiful event. We look at the different themes for the year and the energy that is complete from, we'll look at 2025, what energy is complete, and then what are we opening space for in the coming year. We look a bit at numerology, we'll look at some of the energy, the energetic themes, some of the things that are unfolding in the collective. And then we draw the crystal allies for the year and for each month, and dive a little bit into the ways that they are going to be supporting us. It's a beautiful, beautiful event, usually about 90 minutes long and rich in surprises. All right, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I wish you an absolutely beautiful day, sacred friend. And as always, shine brightly. Bye for now.